Hey there, welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I am Sam Oches, editor-in-chief here at NRN, and this is the show where I give you an all-access pass to the restaurant industry's most influential decision-makers. This week, I'm talking with Pat Conlin, the president of Wayback Burgers, a better burger franchise with roughly 150 locations here in the U.S. Like everyone else in this industry, Wayback Burgers is leaning into its marketing efforts to generate traffic. And it's found some fun and creative solutions that have engaged its local communities and driven some of its best sales days. Pat joined the podcast to talk about why marketing around things like food holidays has become such a boon for Wayback Burgers and how the company taps into its franchise community to drum up some of its best marketing ideas. In this interview, you will learn more about why bogus holidays are low-hanging fruit for your marketing efforts, why engaging kids in your marketing and your R&D is a win-win, and why the smallest marketing touches can make a big difference. Jumping now into my interview with Wayback Burgers' Pat Conlin. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 5 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, sitting down with Pat Conlin, the president of Wayback Burgers. Pat, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Sam. Pleasure to be here.
All right, Pat, we're going to talk about Wayback Burgers and some marketing you guys are doing. We'll get into franchising and just the state of things. But for those not familiar with Wayback Burgers, give us a quick 30-second plug on what this brand is all about.
Sure. Well, we started in 1991 in Newark, Delaware, and we've now grown to about 150 restaurants in the U.S. and with another 20 or so internationally. So about 170 restaurants worldwide. We continue to grow. It's a better burger concept in the fast casual segment. And if you've never been to one, go to our website, check out where our locations are. And who doesn't like a great hamburger and a homemade milkshake? So
sure,
give us a try.
I've had the pleasure of visiting a Wayback before, and the Wayback is referencing, I mean, it's kind of there's sort of a nostalgic vibe to this brand, right? Can you tell me a little bit about what that Wayback really entails?
Yeah, it is nostalgic. I'm glad you picked up on that because that's what we try to inspire in our guests. And it goes back to not just the burger and the fries and the milkshakes, but the design of the restaurants, and the way that we serve, or the way that our franchisees serve the guests that come into the restaurant. We don't consider you a customer when you come into the restaurant, because we really think that you're a guest coming into our dining room at home. And, a customer going into a store is a transactional relationship, and we want to have more of a personal relationship. We ask you for your name at the POS system when we take your order. So again, we're not giving you a number. It's a little bit more personalized. We walk the food out to the table when it's ready, and we walk out and say, Sam, here's your Wayback Classic. We don't say number 27, number 29. So it just gives a little bit more personal touch to the guest. And it's that sense of service that you don't get that much anymore. Mm-hmm. And that sense of nostalgia and that comfort food that makes you think back to a better time.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so that's a great segue into what we're going to talk about here, to set the stage, because as I mentioned, we'll talk about marketing for sure. And to set the stage, of course, I've been talking about marketing really all year with my guests because, of course, traffic is a problem across the board for restaurant companies, and marketing has become so important to driving traffic back in the restaurants. And so that's one of the big challenges that folks are facing. But before we get into that, I want to talk about labor, because you mentioned that sort of emphasis on hospitality. And I'm just curious, for Wayback, I mean, how much has labor been critical to maintaining that hospitality, and how have you navigated through some of the challenges with labor lately?
It's funny because we just had a group of franchisees here in from around the country that are our National Franchisee Advisory Council, and many of them are multi-unit franchisees from different parts, different regions of the country. And I always ask them, how's labor? And probably a year and a half ago, it was a tougher labor market. Now you're finding the labor. It's certainly costing you more money than it did 1, 2, 3 years ago. Yeah. So that's a challenge to a franchisee, to a person. When you ask them, they say there's not a labor problem. It's you have to pay the right amount of money. Minimum wage is a myth. If you think that you're going to pay people minimum wage and you're not going to have a labor problem, that's not going to be true. If
Right.
the restaurant down the street is paying 25 cents or 50 cents above minimum wage, that really becomes the minimum wage. And that's what you have to pay in order to get labor. Nobody's going to work for less than the guy down the street's paying. So, so what we have tried to do over the last couple of years is find ways and solutions to help out with the labor problem in terms of operations, technology, ordering systems, and to try and help that crunch on the labor. Self-ordering kiosks that came out of the pandemic, and we now have them probably in about 40% of our existing restaurants, and all the new restaurants being built are going to have a ordering kiosk. Not so much to cut down on labor, but to redeploy the labor that is in the restaurant to better serve the guests that come in.
Yeah.
And then certainly the ordering online has drastically increased. And that's a labor saving tool also, because you don't have a line of guests in the restaurant. Those orders are coming in naturally through the POS system, through the third party delivery systems and marketplaces. And it's a ticket that pops up. So you're just preparing the order. Right. You're not taking the order at a POS system and taking up that time labor wise. So that's been enhancing those platforms on our end is a big project for us, and that we're going to launch in early 2025 to have a more seamless and a more guest friendly ordering system throughout our digital ordering platforms.
So leaning into technology really to help make that ordering more efficient, take the pressure off of the employees. I trust you found a way then to balance that with sort of the nostalgia that you're aiming for within Wayback.
Yeah. The restaurant industry, you're still going to have that personalization that people are still going to walk in the restaurants. We want guests to walk into the restaurants. We want them to experience that whole atmosphere. That's part of Wayback. We love the digital orders. We love the delivery orders, but we really want to get guests into the dining room. And when somebody opens up the door, have a couple of the team members yell out, "Welcome to Wayback," in a polite way. And all through that guest journey, having that interaction with the guests, walking the food out to the table, doing table touches, which is unusual for a restaurant in the fast casual segment. And then when they're leaving the restaurant, saying, "See you on the way back," and having fun all through that journey. Nobody likes to go into a restaurant and it be a silent, quiet atmosphere like you're eating in a library. You feel uncomfortable as a guest. Also feels uncomfortable for the team members. It makes their day go by if it's a more lively environment and they're having fun. And by getting that name from the guests when they order, you kind of get that muscle memory when Sam comes in every week to get his burger. Maybe I don't remember what burger he gets, but I know his name is Sam, or vice versa. I don't remember your name, but I know that you get that classic with no onions. And so when you come in, you get that classic with no onions today, makes you feel important as a guest. And that's the kind of relationship that we want to have with the guests when they come into the restaurant. And that's what's going to set us apart. We know that we have a quality product. Okay. There are other burger guys out there that have similar quality products. So what's going to set us apart is that service feature and making that guest feel welcome in a great environment and making them walk out and say, "Wow, I went to that new Wayback that opened, but the owner, Pat, came over to me and he asked me if he could refill my soda or how my burger was." And you want to have that wow factor when you walk out of a restaurant.
Yeah. So that gets us then to what we want to talk about here around marketing, because of course, getting customers in the doors, that's been the challenge really this year as inflation hit a point where customers finally got fed up and said, "I'm pulling back on the food I spend on the money I spend on food outside the home." So that now you see traffic, many brands with declining traffic, not as much reflected in revenue because of the increased prices, but still goal here is to increase your traffic. Where is Wayback in this? How have you guys been doing with the traffic issue of the past year or two?
The traffic, the transaction is so far this year has been flat. Okay. Through the third quarter. So based on the industry and based on everything that's going on, we're not happy about it. We'd like the traffic to be higher, to be a positive number, but not terribly unhappy that it's flat and not in a negative sense. What we try and do and to increase the traffic and increase the revenues for the franchisees is, aside from the tech and trying to make the operation easier, is we want to have fun with marketing and do those different national fun holidays that we can tie into that make sense for us. We do in May is National Hamburger Day, but we celebrate the whole month as National Hamburger Month. And we have specials all month long, and it really catapults us into the spring, summer season. And then in June every year, we've always done free shake day on the first day of summer. No purchase necessary. Anybody that wants to can walk into any Wayback around the country. It's not an app only promotion, and you get a free 12-ounce milkshake. So just another fun event, a feel good event, springboard into the summertime. And it typically has been our highest, even though we're giving out free milkshakes, it's typically been our highest sales day system wide of the year. This past year, or this year that we're in now, 2024, the day that eclipsed it was we also do a special for National Cheeseburger Day, which falls in September. Last year, we had done it where it was app only or digital only. And in talking to the franchisees, they said, you know what, this year in 2024, we really want to open it up to everybody, whether it's a digital order or they're walking into one of the restaurants. So similar to free, and it was a BOGO classic Wayback cheeseburger. So we did that, and it turned out to by far be our busiest day of the year, even though it was a BOGO. And it means people are coming in, they're coming in. I probably could eat 2 classic burgers in one setting, but not usually. So I have to bring somebody with me. Mm-hmm. And that means additional purchases for drinks and French fries and tater tots and things like that. So we had a big, I think we were up about 29% over last year's National Cheeseburger Day. Just had a great overall sales day. And the funniest thing was milkshake sales on that day were up about 39%. So wow. It really shows that people, they were saving money because they were getting a BOGO, but they wanted to indulge and treat themselves to a great milkshake. So right. It was a win-win for everybody. When the franchisees were in the last couple of days, we just agreed to do the same thing next year. And they said, why not? Yes, it was a crazy, crazy day in the restaurant, but we know what day it's going to be next year, what day of the week it's going to be next year, and we'll be even better prepared to handle it. They did an awesome job across the country. The feedbacks on a day like that, where you're going to have a longer wait time in the restaurant, possibly. We've got very few. The overall majority of feedbacks that we got in the system were positive. And when are you going to do this again from guests? So right. You can't do it every day, but we're going to do it again next year.
Well, it's funny you say that because, as I'm thinking about this, I swear there is a fun, silly holiday every single day of the year, right? And there are calendars out there that you can find that show you these. Now, they're not always food related, but there is something that's being celebrated every day. Why do you think this resonates so much with consumers?
You know what? I'm definitely from an older generation, so I don't look for those things. Yeah. But there are people out there that look and people are in our office that are much younger than me that come in. Do you know today is National Leather Shoe Day or some crazy? And I said, no, I have no idea that's today. So I don't know. It's a fun thing, and we love to play off of that. So next year when we do the free shake day in June, it also happens to fall on National Vanilla Milkshake Day. So perfect tie-in, because that's going to be the flavor of the milkshake that we give away that day. And next year we're looking at more of those fun holidays to piggyback on that make sense for us. Mm-hmm. We're going to do something for I think it's a week, a National Teachers Week and National Nurses Week, that we're going to be doing something for, but other fun food holidays. We've done one with National Ketchup Day, and so, like you said, there's something out there for every food item and every other item under the sun. But
yeah,
we look to have fun with that and piggyback on that where it makes sense for us.
See, I'm convinced this is driven by parents because, as an example, in the Oches household, this might not surprise you, but Star Wars fan over here, you could tell probably by the Death Star that's above my head here. So my soon-to-be 6-year-old son and I, on May 4th, which of course is May the 4th be with you, right? We go all out. We love May 4th, and it's our Star Wars day. So I'm convinced because, of course, as parents, we're constantly looking for something to have fun, right? Because we want to redirect our kids' attention. So that's my theory here. I imagine way back, you guys must be huge with families, especially on these days, right?
Yeah. It was funny you said you think it's families. I think I originally thought it was Hallmark that thought up these special days to sell different cards. But yeah, anything that we can tie in again with a parents and a kid and bringing kids in and getting kids meals, and if the parents let them get a mini milkshake and get them all riled up outside of the house. Is good with us. And, it kind of ties into our national charitable partner of the Boys and Girls Club of America that we've been connected with since 2018. And, not only is a fundraising arm for them, but we like to involve them in different contests. A couple of years ago, we tasked the clubs and the kids in the clubs to come up with the name and recipe for a milkshake. And then that milkshake was going to be a limited time offer for that summer on all the restaurants across the U.S. And we had about 750 entries from kids from probably 6-7 years old up to seniors in high school from the Boys and Girls Clubs.
Nice.
And we asked them the name of the milkshake, the ingredients, and why they came up with that recipe. We culled it down to 3 semifinalists and then had the public vote on it. So the winning shake was a caramel cinnamon toast crunch milkshake, and it came out of a club in Philadelphia. And that's still on the menu. But the one that always sticks in my head was a vanilla milkshake with chicken tenders. And the reason why, now, again, these are kids.
Yeah.
The reason why is we love vanilla milkshakes and we love chicken tenders. So that did not make the menu, but it makes it laugh.
At least tried. At least try.
Right. And, we go through all kinds of machinations to come up with LTOs, and we have these great kids come up with, great inventions out of the Boys and Girls Club. So it was a fun event for us and a fun event for the kids across the country. So we love to do stuff like that and get them involved.
That's a great idea. I love that idea. All right. So sticking with these food holidays again, just for a bit, it feels like, again, there's so many of them. Now, you guys have really leaned into the ones that make sense for you, which for Wayback, your menu, not quite as big as, call it like a Cheesecake Factory, might really, struggle if they do something where they're trying to do every day that fits with their menu. Right. But what I want to talk about really here is profitability and ROI, how this really does affect Wayback's traffic, sales, profitability, because, talking about BOGOs and deals and things like that, of course, you're skating closer over to discounting and, loss leaders and things like that. And I'm just wondering, how do you ensure when you do a deal like this that you're not going to take a hit on the sales for the sake of traffic? Yeah.
Well, since we're a 100% franchised company, we can't think up of all these promotions sitting in a gilded office and, have it go down from a 10th floor office and say, this is what you're going to do. We include the franchisees in everything we're going to do, that National Franchisee Advisory Council, and talk about, okay, if we're going to do a BOGO, there's going to be a cost involved in that. To the franchisee, and if it's a big hit, is it worth it on the sales side? This September, when we did the one for National Cheeseburger Day, and they knew about it, we agreed on it ahead of time. We didn't know it was going to be as successful as it was. Thankfully it was, and it brought in all those additional sales. There was no pushback this year when we said, do we want to do it again full blown where it's digital and people and guests walking in the restaurant, or do we just want to keep it digital? Everybody said, no, 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 no. It was a great day last year. We had triple the sales of what we normally would have done on that day of the week. I think it was a Wednesday. And why would we go backwards? So, we're very cognizant of that. On some of those days, it's not a discount or promotion. It's just promoting the fact that it's National French Fry Day. Mm-hmm. There's no price point associated with it. It's just having fun with it on the social media channels and our email club and our SMS campaigns, and trying to encourage guests to come into the restaurant on those days. Just reiterating and putting us top of mind on those days. So it's not always a discount or a BOGO or anything like that. So we have to weigh the different days and what makes sense sales wise, profitability wise for the franchisees.
And then what would be some KPIs you would look at for the success of something like this? Because clearly you guys, you're going to do this next year. Clearly it was successful for you. What are some of those goals that it achieved that told you that this was a success?
One of the big things, we had relaunched our app back the end of February, beginning of March of this year, 2024, with a new app, a lot more bells and whistles, and a lot more customization for the guests. So this National Cheeseburger Day in September, we had even though it wasn't mandatory that you got the promotion through the app, you could walk into the restaurant and get it. We had a huge amount of signups from new guests coming in and seeing the POP material in the restaurants and getting a bag stuffer or something on their tray or something in the restaurant to QR code to go and download the app. And that's the start of it. That's a great KPI for us, because then we capture the guest, we can remarket to the guest, we can make them a loyal guest. So maybe Sam, you come into a Wayback once a month. We want to try and get that traffic up and get you coming twice a month, and we can do that once we capture you in the app. So a lot of the reasoning behind having those fun days is to build sales, build the loyalty of the guests, and have guests also go out onto social media and talk about it and talk about Wayback. So usually on those days, almost always, we hit those high points, and there's an increase over the same day the year before or the same day of the week, whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, a normal Thursday where there is no food holiday. And, next week it's a chocolate milkshake day, and we did a promotion, and then we see the likes and the interaction on our social pages go up exponentially, and the app downloads, which is great. And those are the things that we're looking for, in addition to always looking for the sales to increase, but in addition on the marketing side, to see how many guests that we can capture and be able to remarket to.
Sure. You mentioned social media, and I'm just curious, like social media, it seems to me like these food holidays, any holidays, but especially food holidays, seem so perfect for social media in particular, because social media is such a short-term content platform, and it's so oriented around fun and telling people about things, informing people about what's going on. And so I imagine you guys lean into social media, but how do you spread the word about these deals that you guys are doing on these fun holidays?
Definitely social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube channels, our SMS platform that we have, and our email club, and PR. Or we have a PR agency that works for us that puts the word out on those special days. So and then there's also POP, point of sale material, in all the restaurants that we send out. So that's how we get the word out and really push it.
Got it. So something I tend to do, again, as a parent, I did this yesterday, actually. So you and I are speaking right before Halloween,
Yep.
although this episode will air after a Halloween. But, I and my wife, we frequently are looking at various local blogs to see what are the kid-friendly activities around town related to Halloween. And I do this with eating too. Now, I don't, as a parent of young children, don't have opportunity to eat out too much, but I'll for example follow local food influencers, and they will list all of the local places doing the special deal to celebrate Halloween, to celebrate National Cheeseburger Day, whatever it is. So then again, I think, it seems to me like there is an opportunity there to spread the word through the social media influencers, through whoever it might be. But what it leads me to asking is about, the sort of getting new guests versus increasing frequency of existing guests. Because I imagine obviously both are very good, but to me, this really seems tailor-made for especially the new guest. Because if I'm tuned into National Cheeseburger Day and I'm thinking, I know there are going to be some cheeseburger brands out there that are going to offer some deals, I might look for one that I've never heard before, because what better time to try it than if a day I get a BOGO? Does that resonate with you? Are you guys looking to really crank up your exposure to the new guests, especially?
Absolutely. Well, we love our existing guests and we want them to come back more often, but the lifeblood is also getting new guests through no fault of anybody, any restaurateur of their own. They can be doing a great job, but the mailman who comes into your restaurant once a week, now he retired. He moved to Florida. He retired and he moved to Florida. So you're saying, wow, where did the mailman, he used to come in once a week and get a burger and fry. What happened to him? And you have to replace him. So you have to replace him with a new guest or an existing guest to get them to come in more often. A new guest is also going to talk about you more often when they find a new place that they like. They're going to not only tell their friends and their family, hopefully they get on social media and they talk about the new place that they went to, or the place that they went to for National Hamburger Day or Free Milkshake Day that they hadn't been to before. And yeah, I got a free milkshake or a BOGO cheeseburger, but it was a great cheeseburger, great experience. So not that we take our existing guests for granted. We want them we want to love them and have them come in more often. But you have to, in business, you have to get new guests every day. And that's the franchisee, our franchisees shouldn't be in there flipping burgers and making fries. They should be going out there and looking for new guests every day.
Right.
That should be the goal.
So pivoting then to franchisees, because you mentioned just how important these decisions are to your franchisees. You mentioned your franchise council. You guys are in constant communication, I imagine. How much are you soliciting their feedback for new initiatives? I mean, if one of your franchisees comes to you and says, "Hey, Pat, we've got, we just learned there's National Mustard Day that we need to take advantage of," how much do you guys really lean into their feedback, their input, and then work with that to design these new campaigns?
I mean, our franchisees are out there every day in the restaurants. Okay. I'm not in a restaurant every day behind the counter. I may be in getting a burger or a milkshake, but they're there every day. They're interacting with the guests every day. They hear what's going on an everyday basis. The special that we're going to do for Nurses Week came out of one of the franchisees that's here. She's a nurse in a hospital down in Baltimore, in addition to owning a couple of Wayback restaurants. So she said, there's a Nurses Day or Nurses Week, and we should do something to see if we can get into hospitals. And so, a lot of those things come from franchisees. We just had, excuse me, our convention last end of July, beginning of August this year. And we hadn't had one for a long time because of the pandemic. But the franchisees said, hey, it's time for everybody to get together instead of doing regional meetings. So we did it down in Disney and had a great turnout. And we had a bunch of different panel discussions with franchisees. And one of them was on local marketing and had 5 or 6 franchisees up on the panel, along with a couple of people from the marketing department. And just going back and forth about what works for you in your restaurant, works for you. So we had a franchisee in Little Rock, Arkansas, And he pulled out of his pocket, and he had a little bit bigger than a business card size, free Wayback Classic, totally free. And he said, you know what I do? He said, I go out just like everybody else. I go to a gas station. I go to a supermarket. I go to the hardware store or Home Depot. And he said, I have these in my pocket every day. So I'm filling up my tank with gas. And he said, there's somebody next to me or across from me. And I say, hey, have you go to Wayback? I own the Wayback in Little Rock on Chanel Parkway. Here's a card for a free burger. So I thought that was a, unique, novel idea, and doesn't cost him anything. It cost him a burger, the food cost on the burger, but there's no placement cost. And you're getting your food into people's mouths, which is the best form of advertising. So, that again, a whole bunch of people talked about that the last couple of days when they heard this franchisee, Chris Hunter, talk about it. And one of them pulled out of his pocket the same thing that was shown at the convention. So, many of those ideas for, not only marketing ideas, but for products and for limited time offers, LTOs, come from franchisees. And, operational efficiencies, franchisees come back to us and say, hey, you know what? I think if we did it this way, it may be better off for the system. So, it's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street, and the people that are in their restaurants, we get great ideas from them.
Sure. I love that idea of handing out that card for a free burger, especially because such a reminder of how old-fashioned marketing techniques work too.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, last week, like millions of Americans, Friday night is pizza night in my household. Yeah. And I got a mailer for a new pizza place on Friday. And I'm like,
I know where I'm eating.
I know where I'm eating tonight. I'm going to check out this place. Sounds interesting. The mailer was visually attractive, had some good deals included. The place was less than 10 minutes from my house. I'm like, okay, great. I know my pizza place, and we like to spread the love around. And it was also a reminder of sometimes the old fashioned, marketing techniques, they will get the job done. And so it seems like that's so fitting for Wayback, which is so oriented around kind of the past and nostalgia.
Yeah. I mean, we had franchisees prior to the pandemic saying in one-off conversations saying, oh, you know what, I did they may not necessarily have called it a catering order, but they said, I did a big order for a car dealership down the road. A hospital called for, 50 burgers for, one of the departments. And so we said, hey, you know what, we got to get a proper professional catering program with packaging, and marketing materials and menu and everything behind it to put into play. Not that it's not going to be a giant portion of our sales, like a sandwich place that does a lot of catering, but catering is an opportunity to get your food into those big places, office buildings, car dealers, Target, things like that. That some of those employees, some of those people may never have gone to a Wayback. And now, again, they're tasting the food. To me, it's a big sampling opportunity. You're tasting the food. You have material in that burger box that says where it's coming from, and a bounce back or a call to action for now the secretary or somebody else that's eating a Wayback in that office says, oh, you know what? I go home that way. And I didn't know that it was in the shopping center right next to our building because I never go that way. What a great burger. I'm going to check them out next time for lunch. So that came from talking with franchisees about having these big orders. And it was, well, how do you deliver that order? Oh, well, I have a cardboard box in the back, or sometimes I put it in this. And we said, no, we got to come up with the right packaging and put together a catering program. So that's another marketing avenue for us and another sales generator for the franchisees.
Yeah, that's great. All right, Pat, last question for you. It seems like inflation is coming down. There are signs that things are improving for the industry. Maybe some indication that 2025 will be a little bit better as far as traffic goes, hopefully. Regardless, what should we expect from Wayback in the year ahead? What's around the corner for this brand?
We just laid out the marketing plan for 2025 with the National Franchisee Advisory Council this past past 2 days. And I can't give you specifics about certain days because we want to keep it somewhat of a secret.
Sure.
But you'll see more of those food holidays. You'll see more of not just an LTO, but there'll be a secondary marketing piece in there for franchisees to do locally. Several more LTOs. We usually do 3 to 4 a year, and we have some cool ones that are coming out next year. We usually do an entree and a side item and a milkshake for the LTOs. And I'll give you a little peek. We're going to do something with lemonade next year.
Exciting.
We have a great lemonade product from Coca-Cola, but we're going to have something to add to it. And we think that that'll be a big hit in the summertime. And lemonade certainly a trending drink. And just going to have more fun throughout the year. And with less inflationary pressures, we expect diners to be coming back to the restaurants.
Very exciting to watch. Well, I will be cheering for you from over here. I will be following those national holidays. That is for sure. Pat Conlin of Wayback Burger, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Sam.
That was my interview with Wayback Burgers' Pat Conlin. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 5 takeaways. My first takeaway is that if quality can't be a differentiator, then service must be. Pat brought up the fact that, of course, the better burger category has so many players in it. And, of course, it's better burgers. All of them are serving better burgers. At least they say better burgers than, the QSR burger counterparts. So in a space that is very crowded and with so many different options for customers, Wayback Burgers has decided that, yes, it's going to keep its quality of product very high, but it's also going to really make sure that its service can be that differentiator so that any customer that has 3 or 4 better burger places to choose from in their community, they choose Wayback because they feel like they're going to somebody's home. As Pat described it, the hospitality is top-notch. People want to feel like they are in a warm environment where they feel like they're at home, essentially. And that's what Wayback employees are trained to do. They are trained to learn names. They're trained to give that positive experience to everyone who comes in the door. So again, if your menu quality is high, but you're still struggling to make a name for yourself because of how many other competitors are doing what you're doing, look at your service and your hospitality as potentials for really rising above the competition and giving customers a reason to visit your restaurant and not theirs. My second takeaway is that bogus holidays are low-hanging fruit for your marketing efforts. I say bogus very lovingly, by the way. I don't mean that to trash these holidays because they are very fun. But let's face it, there are so many of them. You can pull up calendars. If you just pull up, random holidays or fake holidays, food holidays, anything like that, you're going to see something pretty much every single day of the year has some sort of holiday attached to it. And a lot of it is food related. Wayback Burgers has really used that to their advantage. And I think it's really encouraging to see that because these holidays are out there. They've been established. Who knows who starts these holidays? I have no idea. I think, honestly, anybody can start a holiday. You just have to petition the, holiday overlords, whatever that might be. But you can find something that fits your brand, aligns with your menu, and then just use it. Because again, this is low-hanging fruit. The holidays are already out there. You have communities of people who are following these things, and they genuinely want to participate in some holidays that bring attention to a certain food or whatever it is. So use that. So for Wayback Burgers, they have National Hamburger Day, which they turned into National Hamburger Month. There's also National Cheeseburger Day. Yes, there's 2 different ones. Obviously, a very big difference between the 2. But they are using these to their advantage to say, okay, here's a deal on a free milkshake to recognize National Hamburger Day. And customers listen. They come in and they have fun with it. Pat says they have their highest sales days of the year when they recognize these fun holidays. Even though they give away free food like a free milkshake, they still get such a volume of folks who want to come in and get that free milkshake, but then get lunch or dinner for their whole family, that it drives sales incredibly. Now, franchisees have said, you know what? These days can be crazy, but because there's some predictability to them, when that day is going to happen next year. You can plan for that craziness, make sure you have enough product, make sure you have enough staff on hand to be able to help out. and it gets to be a win-win, a win for the community who gets some free food and a way to celebrate their favorite food, and obviously a win for Wayback Burgers that is connecting with the local community, having some fun with their guests, hopefully connecting with some new guests while increasing the loyalty with their existing guests. Again, go pull up one of these calendars to see what holidays there are. If you're a sushi restaurant, there is got to be a National Sushi Day. If you're a pizza restaurant, there's probably 5 National Pizza Days, let's be honest. These are just right there for the taking, so why not do it? My third takeaway is that engaging kids in your marketing and even your R&D is a win-win. Now, I'm biased. I have 3 kids. They're all pretty little. We're looking for fun things to do. So what Pat's talking about with Wayback Burgers and their deals and having some fun around National Hamburger Day, that is right up my alley, because these are the kinds of things my family likes to look for. But, if you think about the number of families out there, the number of kids out there, if you're a family-friendly restaurant, you want to have some fun. You want to engage those kids. I can't tell you how many restaurants my wife and I visit because our kids want to go there. That's pretty standard for parents. You may not even want to go there yourself, but because your kids want to go, you are going to go. So if you engage your kids, the kids in your marketing, there's a great opportunity to not only have a guest for life potentially with the kid, but potentially capture their parents as well, get into their consideration set. Now, I mentioned R&D because this was a great story that I love that Pat told. He said that they partner with Boys and Girls Club of America, and they ran a campaign where they had the clubs come up with some milkshake flavors, and they would choose a winning milkshake flavor to put on their menu. He said they had 750 entries for this competition and some very, very fun, creative variations that came out of it. The one that ended up on the menu, I believe he said, was a caramel cinnamon toast crunch milkshake. Sounds amazing. But he said he also had a vanilla and chicken tender option that was brought up. And that's just silly. Nobody wants to eat that. I don't know, maybe some of you out there want to eat that. But the fact of the matter is it's fun. You get some free R&D out of it. But again, then when you put it into your marketing, and even better for Wayback, they included it in their philanthropic efforts. Win, win, win. Everybody's happy. It's a lot of fun. You've engaged the kids. They've come up with some fun stuff. It goes into the marketing. Customers come in to try the new flavor. Again, everybody wins in that scenario, and it's by connecting with the kids. My fourth takeaway is that guest acquisition is a churn that you have to constantly work on. You probably know this already, but it is worth repeating how hard it is to get guests into restaurants today. But even when traffic is doing okay, the fact of the matter is that your existing guests will not exist forever. That sounds darker than I mean it to be. But Pat used the example of, he says, what if the mailman moves to Florida? So you have that mailman who's a regular guest, comes in maybe once a week. Well, they've retired, they've moved to Florida. You've lost that guest. Nothing you did wrong, of course, because they've just moved, but you have to replace that guest. That is a stark reminder of the difficulty that restaurants have to keep traffic going in a positive direction. You have to fight for every new guest. You have to constantly impress your existing guests and build that trust and loyalty with them. And you just have to do these things over and over and over again. It's maybe not as hard as it sounds, but it does require a lot of work. So any marketing you can do, like Wayback is doing with these fun holidays and other things, you've just got to do it, because you never know when your mailman is going to move to Florida. My fifth and final takeaway is that the smallest marketing touches can make a big difference. This story that Pat told toward the end of our conversation struck me, which is one of the franchisees had printed out a coupon for Wayback and was at a gas station, and somebody walked by and he handed it to them. That seems so simple. And in this day and age of, high tech bells and whistles, that is very simple, but those things can make a big impact. People love free food. A little business card sized coupon is very easy to carry around with you. You're going to interact with lots of strangers in your day. Why not just give them free food as you're walking around your community? They will come, they will get that free food, and you never know. They might be really impressed and become an existing guest. I guess the point is don't get too caught up in some of these bells and whistles. Yes, there are great tools out there, high-tech tools out there for you to use for your marketing, but don't forget about some of those low-tech, simple solutions that can still drive guests to your restaurants. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again and talk to you next week.